Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Member of Parliament, Dave Tanku, and the Honorable Minister of Finance of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. It's an honor to come here to speak to you about what is the fulfillment of a promise by the Honorable Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, who has an established track record of treating the promises she has made to the people as part of a political mandate that she has to discharge. It is not very often that in democratic philosophy one would see a manifesto as being part of a social contract that you sign with the people who have elected you to serve. And Kamla Persad-Bissessar, Prime Minister, has seen her manifesto as a social contract between herself and the people. And the election of the United National Congress to serve as the government of Trinidad and Tobago is seen as a duty to fulfill that social contract and the promises therein. It is in that context that the Stand Your Ground legislation is so important. Because when a government is voted out of office, it is a socio-political response to a kind of problem that led to people frustration that tilted you over the edge. And make no mistakes about it, the people were so frustrated that they felt the need for a political revolution to change a government and bring about some hope. And why were people so frustrated? Why did they feel the need to have that change? The number one problem in this country is crime. Potholes, yes. Healthcare, yes. But crime is the number one problem. Because if you can't feel safe in your home after you dodge all the pothole, and after you leave your mother and your grandmother by the hospital and they can't get a bed under the P&M, at least if you reach home and you're safe, you can get a good night's sleep and you can get up and you can say, there's a new day, I live to fight another day. But if you cannot be safe in your mind when you go to sleep, that you're guaranteed to wake up the next morning, then there's no possibility of hope for a new day. And that is why crime became the number one problem that was of such major concern to people. It is in response to that problem of crime that this legislation, this bill, comes as a most significant law to Trinidad and Tobago. It is not new because in the United States of America, right in Florida, where so many of our people have fled and gone to live. Remember the 80s when people just abandoned their homes because of crime, driven by fear, and left? Well, we have seen a similar exodus in Trinidad and Tobago. And where they go to is right there in Florida, where they have Stand Your Ground legislation. And to all those persons who are going to speak against this bill, if you're so against Stand Your Ground legislation, give back your US visa. Stop going to Miami and Florida to shop and say, on principle, I do not support Stand Your Ground legislation, so I'm not going by Uncle Sam. Because they have it right there in Florida. And all of them people who criticizing this legislation, give them a chance of lining up from the 2 nights before to get their visa to go and want to live in America. Where this law exists, where they will feel safer, where they will find a peace of mind. But why? You know why? Because of laws like this. So what is this law about? What is the current state of the law? The current state of the law in Trinidad and Tobago is that if someone invades your home, your vehicle, or your private personal space, the law of self-defense applies. That means that you have to prove that you did not use excessive force to defend yourself. And what is excessive force is what is reasonable in the circumstances. That is the current state of the law. But the burden of proof is on the victim. So the victim must prove that he did not use excessive or unreasonable force in defending himself. So I, like most of you, have had experience with people in my family, in my own social circle with crime. My own cousin, who is a businessman, went to sleep with his wife, has a little hardware downstairs in Claxton Bay. He sees on the camera 6 men surrounding his business place and running up. He has a firearm. He has a firearm. So he switches off the lights and he goes by the back door. It's a real story. He goes by the back door. And he's seeing the fellas on the camera and he sees 2 men by the back door. And he's about to shoot. And then he has to pause. And this is a story he's telling me, my cousin. He said, boy, Anand, I stand up and I stand up with my gun in my hand and I'm thinking, if I shoot and I kill this fella, they could come and charge me for using excessive force. It's not self-defense. He said, and my wife home here with me. So I stand up now and I'm studying. I remember the lady in Freeport. The lady in Freeport, the man comes, she's child at home, she daughter. And remember the story? The lady take the husband, I think the husband was a prison officer or a police officer. Was a police? Police officer. And she takes the husband, police officer's licensed firearm, and she shoots. And you know what happened? For 6 months, they terrorized that poor mother, leaving her in a state of limbo as to whether or not the DPP will lay charges against her for firing that shot. So when they say the law is an ass, that is it, making the law an ass. Having innocent people pause for a moment of detached reflection to think in their mind, if I shoot, what will happen? And the mother who shoots is in jeopardy of being criminally charged. So what should the mother do? People sick and tired of the crime situation, but they're more sick and tired of the law. They're more sick and tired of the sick, malfunctioning justice system we have. What justice system could possibly be right that mother, husband not home, 2 men outside your door, your girl child in your house, and you have a firearm, and for 6 to 9 months, you have that mother wondering if she could be charged? Where should get the damn woman a medal? So, that poor mother remains there, wondering and worrying, could she be charged because no self-defense? So imagine the thoughts going through her mind as a mother. She is supposed to wait until she feels her life is in threat and danger, then to use reasonable self-defense. So, in other words, what the law requires is that she had to wait for the bandit to break down the door, confront you with a gun in the hand, and then she could fire. Well, if that is not stupidness, I don't know what is. And likewise with my cousin. My cousin is waiting, seeing the men on his security camera. He is seeing them there. But the poor fella, he remembers that incident with the mother from Freeport. And he pauses, he said, Chief, I know what to do. If I fire and I kill that man, what will be my position? So I don't know what to do. He said, well, I stand up now and I decide to wait until they break down the door and then I go shoot. But then he sees Another two fellas come in by the window. And at that point, he realized that there is no way, it is not humanly possible to wait anymore. So he fires a shot through the back door. And the two fellas say, "Hey, you have a gun." Start running on the step. He is in his dark house. And he then runs by the window and fires a next shot. And the two fellas climbing up by the window say, "Hey, it had more than one of them with gun in the house." They didn't know it was the same fella run from the back door to the window. And when the other two fellas say it had more than one man with gun in that house, they leave and they run. And them fellas scaling over the gate, jumping over the gate and moving. You know, the police tell that poor fella, when he going to make the report, the police in Trinidad Tobago tell my cousin, "But you're a madman to shoot you, so? We want to see a camera footage because we have to decide if you commit a criminal offense." This is a real story. The police were telling the man that they want to see his camera footage to see if they charge him for a crime because he fired them. And when they were running, he fired. Now, that is the current state of the law. It places the innocent citizen at a grave disadvantage. It puts them on the back foot, and it puts the criminal 2 steps ahead of you. And that is the current state of the law. So what then is stand your ground legislation about? Stand your ground legislation revolutionizes the law of self-defense. What it does, it eliminates the duty to retreat. So you are no longer under a duty to retreat and put yourself in a position where you feel your life under threat and you're using self-defense. You are no longer put under a duty to use self-defense as the primary response to the crime. That is no longer there if this becomes law with your support. So by eliminating and changing that duty to retreat, what is the significance of that? Firstly, it means the law will presume that you had a legal justification to use force against that person. So it completely flips the script from putting the burden of proof on the victim to prove that he acted in self-defense. No more will the victim have to prove that he acted in self-defense. Now, the law will presume that the victim acted with lawful justification. In other words, the law will say, you come in this man's house, the law will, we are asking the man no question. The law will presume that he had lawful justification to defend his life, limb, property, and family. That is the difference. It is completely, the burden of proof is completely reversed. Before, you had to prove that you act in self-defense and so on. That's no longer going to be the case. So, by presuming legal justification in favor of the innocent victim, the law will be radically changed in favor of the citizen. The citizen who is aggrieved, who is a victim of the crime, will now find themselves in a position where they is a kind of immunity from prosecution. The spotlight is not going to be focused on the victim of the crime. For far too long in this country, the spotlight is focused on the victim of the crime instead of the damn bandit. What you asking the poor man inside the home after a hard day's work to prove anything for? He shouldn't have to prove anything. Ask the bandit to prove what he doing inside my house. What he doing there? I heard the former prime minister What your name again? Rowley, Dr. Rowley. I heard him say, he said this law is going to be a bad thing. Suppose a man come and take in a zabuka. Well, brother man, simple put, don't come and take Madame Zabuka. What you doing there? You plant it? Instead of sending the right message to criminals, instead of being firm and tough, the population heard him talk that kind of nonsense. It is almost like they're trying to, it was governmental license and sanction to commit crime. Instead of saying that this is a good thing to protect the man who worked so hard to buy a house, fancy property, and to plant the blasted Zabuka tree. That's the reality. Making excuse for criminals and offering no protection for the victim of crime. And then they come with the next stupid talk. Well, you know, these are racial thing. It go target certain people. Well, there's so much that is inherently wrong and ridiculous in that. First, it is almost criminalizing one entire race of people by saying this could target a certain section of the community. Listen, crime knows no color, it has no race, it has no religion. It affects every single one across the board. And I don't know what has been going through the PNM's mind to say that, look, if somebody break in your house and they have the scheme, normally they come in with mask on, you really think if you come out of your bed and you confront a bandit, and the bandit have your daughter by she neck and carrying she to rape she in the next room, you really think that before you pull the trigger or before you fire a planass, you're going to stop and say, wait. Before I shoot you, you mind taking off that mask so I can see if it's born on me? Let me see if you're Indian, or let me see if you're a red man or African like me before I shoot you now. That them fellas thinking, you know? All they could preach is race. Who in their right mind, in the heat of the moment, trembling with fear, frightened and terrified in your own home, who in their right mind will stop to think about bloody race? What you're thinking about is your life, your daughter, your wife. That is what you're thinking about. So the criticisms have absolutely no basis or justification legally, socially, or politically. None. So when they come with that kind of crap, you tell them, when somebody break in my house, I ain't had time and I don't care about his race and religion. I don't care. What I care about is you're a bloody bandit. And if I have to do anything to protect my daughter, my wife, my children, and my home, I will do it. That is the reality. So ladies and gentlemen, this stand your ground law, the law will presume that you had a reasonable belief as to the necessity, the need for force in the context of man breaking in your house and your vehicles and your personal space and so on. And listen, you need to understand, this is a major revolution in the criminal law. We have never before in Trinidad and Tobago had a law like this that puts the innocent person first. We are now, Kamla Prasad Bisesa is turning the law upside down on its head and flipping the script. Empty the clip, but this is reversing the burden altogether. So this is clearing the way for you to empty the clip and to make sure that you are given the legal protection and right to do so. That is the reality. So, now, by that duty to retreat, which would have required you, in some cases in the United States, they say, back up against the wall. That was the old law. The duty to retreat meant that you had to back until you're back against the wall, and then, if the man had killed you and you reach the wall, then you could start defending yourself. Not anymore. Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the UNC government is removing the wall and saying, it a have no wall anymore. The only wall it have is my fence. And anytime you cross it, it's pressure. And the law will protect me. Because there is a presumption that you have a legal justification for the use of deadly force in those scenarios. Now, of course, it is not a license to go on an unreasonable rampage. So a young boy coming to check your daughter. Yeah, going on, bus shots for that. You understand? And really and truly somebody coming to take this Zaboka, well, let go the dog or something now. You understand? So it is not there's still the concept of proportionality. You still have to be proportionate. It's not a vigilante justice. It is meant to protect you in appropriate situations where people come at you. But nobody is advocating that it is going to be a free-for-all that is going to give a carte blanche check, as it were, to, randomly do stupid things. That's not the case at all. The law comes with a sense of social and political responsibility, but it is a significant revolution in the law that protects the innocent citizen by saying he does not have a duty to retreat. For the first time, the citizen and the homeowner wouldn't have a duty to retreat. The man who will have to retreat is the bandit in your house and your yard. Why should there be a law that imposes a duty on you to retreat in your own home? Why should my cousin have to retreat and be worried? After that incident in Freeport, when that mother, for 9 months, that woman was in limbo, taking her husband's gun and firing a shot. She and her daughter alone home. You're seeing the men on the camera. Not a single official statement from the government saying, no charge. That mother, I tell you, I feel so sorry for her. In addition to the traumatic ordeal of going through that experience with men by your back door and you and your daughter home alone, and taking your husband who's a police officer's firearm and firing a shot. The state, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, rubs salt and gongo pepper in she wound. It is ridiculous. It was adding insult to injury. And for those of you who don't even remember what I'm talking about, that's to tell you how comatose we are. That's to tell you how as a people we are not politically conscious, but we woke up on April 28th. So let us wake up again to understand this. When that mother was in a state of limbo, and when the message was sent to people like my own cousin that, hey, I have to retreat in my own home until they break down the door, and you have to pause for a cause and think and whine and bunbunawe and tintinawe in your mind. You end up to run, stand up, go under the bed. Everybody retreating. Everybody going in the room. What do we do? Trinidadians and Tobagonians, we lock in the door. We lock one door, we go in the bedroom, we lock the next door. Then we go in under the bed. We try and we cell phone. We're retreating. You're retreating in your own home. Now, stand your ground law, coupled with a more liberal access to firearms, will give you two rights. You no longer have a duty to retreat and take your gun and empty the damn clip. That is going to be the new reality in Trinidad. And it is about time that the law protects people and gives them that right. And you will be presumed in the eyes of the law, by the law, to have a reasonable fear of imminent peril and danger or death or bodily harm, so that you will be protected by the law. And that is only fear. How on earth could we not make a presumption like that? What is the presumption that the law expects you to make? A bandit break in your house, where will he come for? Cricks? He come to have tea with you? He come to ask you for some roti and takari? No. The presumption the law should be making all the time is that the man come there to use deadly force, to rob you, to rape your children, and to take away all your hard-earned jewelry from your grandmother days, come up, whatever it is. Because that is the reality. That is the reality. So, the law is now, for the first time, going to match and take into account what is the reality that you face on a daily basis. So, ladies and gentlemen, I say to you that let us listen to the cry of the people. Let us listen to your fears. And let us, as a responsible government, govern based on what your feelings, what your experience, and what your suggestions and solutions are. The government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is about solutions from ground up, not from top to the bottom. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, the Honorable Prime Minister, must be complimented for mandating her members of Parliament to hold pre-budget consultations and to hold stand-your-ground legislation consultations like this. It is a defining moment in her political leadership that sets her apart from all other political leaders, because she is about getting solutions from the socio-political consciousness of the people themselves. In other words, she's saying, you tell me what you want the solution to be, and I will consider it and implement it on your behalf. And that is why we are here today. We are here to consult, to discuss, but most importantly, to listen. And that is why Minister Tanku, my brother, you notice he had talk much? He introduced me. I don't talk him plenty. And then we are here to listen and answer questions. Because it is only by listening that the government will learn. So, ladies and gentlemen, I urge you, speak up, speak out, let your voice be heard, and let the bandits retreat in fear, because there is a new government and a new lady sheriff in town, and her name is Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Thank you very much.